Hey guys, it's Hannah here, and I wanted to take you guys through a live edit of how I use these presets on my own photos. I have a couple photos here that I will edit for you guys using a couple of the different presets so you can see sort of a before and after and show how to use them for yourself. So the first image I'm going to start with is this image of the coffee cup, and I already straightened and applied the enhance preset to it. And one thing I noticed is that I'm going to probably want to drop the highlights here just because it's a little bright in the foam. I want that detail to be captured. So I'm going to drop those just a little bit and probably bring the contrast up just a touch. One thing that I did already was I clone stamped out a little spot that was up here by the window. But that's really no big deal. This one is a pretty easy edit, so you can see the before and after. So what I'm going to do is create a virtual copy, and we can reset this image again. Let's go back to straighten. Go ahead and stamp this guy out. And then let's see what Moody looks like on this image. This one I really like. I think it softens it a little bit while darkening everything so you can see before and after. What I might do here is drop the shadows a little bit more just to give it a little bit more edge, and maybe drop the highlights a touch. But I think that this looks really good on this particular image. Okay, so here's a picture that I took of Jessica a while back in the same coffee shop where we took that overhead photo. For this one, I think I really liked Cool Neutral. And Cool Neutral is a little bit finicky just because it does add a pretty dramatic blue cast to the images. So if you're in outside and warm sun, it can be a little bit too blue depending on where you're shooting. I think this looks really good as is, but I'm gonna bring up the shadows just a touch. Maybe drop the highlights a touch. And then I think we should keep the white balance as is too. Her skin tone looks really good here. If you can see in the original image, it's a little bit orange, a little bit red throughout here. But this blue cast, I think, evens it out a lot. One thing that I would do later on is try to smooth out some of the felt of the hat just to make it look a little bit more solid. But I think this looks good. I might drop the clarity just a touch. You can see in her skin here, the highlights are a little harsh, like there's a lot of contrast in her face. So if I drop the clarity just a touch, it evens everything out just a little bit. Okay, let's move on to this picture of Jasmine. I love this picture because she's got a nice neutral but still bright outfit against a really dark backdrop. I originally used Moody for here, but let's see what warm neutral looks like. Ooh, this looks really good. Okay, so off the bat I can see that the highlights are a little harsh on her face. So I'm gonna go ahead and drop those just a touch. I think that looks good. And what I might do is bump the shadows, but pull down the exposure just a touch. And you can see before and after. This preset adds some good texture into the sweater here. You can see in the original you can see it, but you can't see it very well. But so you can just really see that knit texture with the preset. This one was another favorite of mine, Jessica, a while back. I think this was back in January. Let's try Cool Neutral here. Okay, so this background was a little blue to begin with, so I think Cool Neutral works well with it. Again, the way that I shoot with pretty high highlights anyways, so right off the bat I know that I need to bring all of this down back here. So I'm gonna drop the highlights. I might drop the exposure just a touch and bring up the shadows. And then I think I'm gonna warm this up just a little bit. But yeah, you can see the difference here. There's that extra contrast. I think it shows the texture of the jacket really well with the edit, and it smooths out her skin tone too. You can see a little orange coming through here. This evens it out a little bit, and I'm actually gonna maybe drop the magenta just a touch. Let's see. Yeah, that looks good. Now I think I like the shadows as is. This is pretty true to her natural hair color, but I think that looks good. So this was a favorite photo of mine from last year. I started shooting in harsh light just to experiment with it a little bit, and loved how this one turned out. I thought it was very like editorial and just cool. And I loved the way that the Moody preset looked on this. Okay, so this is the original and this is with Moody. What I wanted to do was bring up some of these shadows just in her cheekbone a little bit. It was just a little bit much. And some right under her chin. And you can also bump those shadows here as well. Pull the contrast just a little bit. And then I dropped the clarity here too, because when you're shooting in harsh light, you can see a lot of stuff happening with skin a lot more. So what I would do next was go in and sort of touch up the skin. If there's any spots that the client wants me to remove, I'll go ahead and take those out. But overall, I think that this is a really nice, like, sort of dramatic edit. So here's another one. Same client, same sort of harsh light situation. What do we think? Let's try warm neutral here. And when you're shooting in harsh light, pretty much everything is going to be dramatic and a little moody. But because I want it a little bit brighter, I'm going to pull those shadows up and maybe even bump the exposure just a touch. And then drop those highlights so her skin still looks natural. Pull down the clarity just a touch. And then let's keep the white balance as is. I loved this image, this outfit, these colors, the location. I thought it was perfect. So that is with warm neutral. And then here's just a picture of Kathy that we shot at Little Tart. Kathy tends to prefer a brighter edit, so these presets won't necessarily fit with her aesthetic very well, but I just wanted to show you how they still work on a different shooting style. I liked, honestly, I think they all look cool. Let's do enhance. So this is probably the closest that I would get to her actual edit, but it's still a little bit too edgy for Kathy's style. But here I would just drop the highlights a touch, maybe a little bit more. And I think that this, you know, is actually pretty perfect. And if you want to see a different preset here, we can do warm neutral. This is a little bit more like monochromatic. What's going on? Again, I would drop the highlights, but yeah, these are pretty much good to go. And then last one, I love the scenery. If I were being really nitpicky about things, I would probably get rid of this parking sign, but usually we can just do a quick crop to get rid of that. Frame her up a little bit better. I like the negative space here, and I love the highlights, even though they're a little bright on this building back here. I would typically use enhance for shooting like Jessica's. This is pretty close to what I use for her images in general. And here again, I just drop the highlights and maybe call it a day. Maybe get rid of a couple of these little spots out on the street. But yeah, for the most part, that is it. If you guys want to see more live edits, these, you know, when you're shooting with a well exposed image on an SLR, a lot of these can be one-click edits. They're, you know, really, really, really easy to use and work well with good natural light. If you guys want to see your own images edited with my presets, let me know. Send me a couple files and I'll do a video where I am editing your photos instead of mine. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys love these presets. If you have any questions about them, please let me know, and I will talk to you guys soon.